Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Lupus Europe webinar on the EULAR Congress 2024. Tonight we're going to talk about our experience of the EULAR Congress. It took place on June 12 to 15 in Vienna, in Austria, and we had a robust presence in Lupus Europe, I must say. We submitted 6 abstracts. We had 6 oral presentations, and 2 of those were in the scientific program. So I think we really showcased patients a lot. There are so many interesting research projects going on, but to make them successful and make sure that they can be accessed by all, patients need to be involved the entire way through. They need to be informed about ongoing research, and they need to have a seat at the table when it comes to discussions about research projects. So that's why we think it's important to bring lupus patients to EULAR, which is the biggest congress on rheumatic diseases in Europe. In total, we had 16 attendees from our organization, including board members and PAN members, and they all actively participated in the Congress. As usual, we asked some people to record videos, and you're going to see those videos tonight, but we also asked them to give their own personal feedback. So we have a mixture of presentation feedback and also patients giving their feedback. So this means that people living with lupus were very much present at the most important sessions related to lupus at the Congress. It was 4 days of intensive learning, collaboration, and advocacy, and so much valuable information and so many experiences were had, and we need to share them with you. So now you can hear some of those insights and learnings in this webinar, and we also have a few people reporting live in this meeting tonight. So I think I would just start by sharing the video that we have for you guys. I think the video is almost an hour, and then we have about half an hour afterwards sharing the outcomes live. So if you bear with me, I will start the video.
Australia, and I want to talk to you about.
Sorry, you also need to see it. Good.
Hi, I'm Eric Morand from Monash University in Melbourne, Australia, and I want to talk to you about the work we presented today on the glucocorticoid dose threshold for the lupus low disease activity state. So treat to target means getting the patient to remission, meaning no disease activity, preferably with a very low dose of steroid or even zero. That's hard to attain, so we need a working definition of low disease activity, which we have developed and validated, where a small amount of disease activity is permissible and steroid dose up to 7.5 milligram per day is permissible. We've shown that achievement of this state, called the lupus low disease activity state, is protective from damage accrual, flare, death, and loss of quality of life. But recently there's been pressure for good reasons to use lower thresholds of steroid in our recommendation for patients. So we tested whether changing the glucocorticoid, the prednisolone dose threshold from 7.5 to 5 milligram was associated with stronger protection. And to our surprise, we found that it was not. Firstly, most patients who meet the definition of low disease activity are already taking 5 milligram or less, even though the ceiling, the maximum permitted dose, is 7.5. And when we compared the protective effects of low disease activity using a 7.5 milligram cutoff to a low disease activity with a 5 milligram cutoff, we could not find any difference. Both definitions were strongly protective against adverse outcomes. So these data do not suggest that we change the definition of low disease activity for lupus, but of course we want all patients to take lower doses of steroid in the long term.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alexandros Panagiotou. I'm a rheumatology resident based in Athens, Greece. And my investigation was in tapering and discontinuation of treatment in patients with lupus nephritis. So our key messages, what we find really important, is that in these patients we have to ensure an early complete remission to ensure low disease activity and persistent hydroxychloroquine use before thinking of tapering the treatment, because hydroxychloroquine seems to be really important for the patients. It may be a really small drug with small potency, but it is really important. And the persistent use, of course, of it. What else we found important is that we have to be careful during the tapering period, because flares at that period may be important for the future. But at the end, these patients have a good outcome, and without treatment, and with our weapons that we have now and combined treatments, we are sure that we can make their quality of life better and be also us as doctors happy and feel safe with them.
Good morning. I am Filippo Zentini. I'm a resident from Harvard University. I presented our work regarding laboratory discontinuation in patients in stable remission in systemic lupus erythematosus. Our work assessed the risk of flare after glucocorticoid discontinuation, and we tried also to analyze if there were any predictors for flare after discontinuation of the glucocorticoid. What our work highlighted is that in patients in stable remission and with factors like normal complement level and therapy with hydroxychloroquine, we found that glucocorticoid withdrawal after a slow and proper taper is considered safe and does not increase the risk of flare, while in other subset of patients like more severe diseases or in patients experiencing a high number of flare during the disease course, or with particular features such as anti-EULAR or the hematological involvement, the tapering and the suspension should be more cautious, and these are our results.
Hello, my name is Katarina and I'm a PAN member in Lupus Europe. This was my first time at EULAR. It was so nice to meet my lupus family from all over Europe. I enjoyed to be at the booth, talking to people that were interested to hear about us. Lupus GPT is so exciting, and I hope the tool can help both patients and others to get the answers they are looking for. There were so many interesting sessions I listened to, and I found the sessions about pain and fatigue with Cristina Baudet very interesting. Also Filippo Vesentini talking about glucocorticoid and withdrawal. It was also interesting to listen to Sara Badre Wirström talking about digital health and the use of health apps for tracking data. I was also lucky to meet the people I'm in a project with, including Eric Morin. It was so nice to meet face to face. I found EULAR very interesting and I learned a lot. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Christina Bode. I'm a health psychologist from the Netherlands. And yesterday here on the EULAR conference, I gave a talk. And so you asked me to summarize this talk. I'm happy to do this for you. So my talk was about improving self-management for pain and fatigue. And what I explained was that self-management is a very important feature because patients deal with their symptoms for 9,000 hours a year, and only 1 hour they meet a health professional. So they self-manage their symptoms most of the time on their own. And therefore, improvement of self-management and also supportive self-management is of utmost interest. Then I summarized a bit what self-management might be, and there I made the statement that it is not only disease management. So disease management might mean taking your medication at the right moment, testing your blood at the right moment, preparing the communication with your health professionals. But I think it is more than that, because you also want to participate in the society, and that you have to manage too. But you might also be confronted with a lot of emotions like frustration or anxiety or depressive feeling. And also here, emotional regulation is part of self-management. But if we take it a bit broader, then it might also be that being diagnosed with your disease means that you have to re-identify who you are and where you get purpose from in your life. And this is the most broadest category of self-management. In my second part of the talk, I presented some new paths of self-management. And if we look into more technology-supported self-management, then I talked about the virtual reality as an option for manage pain symptoms, but also to manage fatigue symptoms. For pain management, virtual reality environments are out there. And at this moment in Enschede, in the Netherlands, we test these virtual reality environments, whether they are safe and nice, usable and feasible for patients with rheumatic diseases. And for fatigue, there is little in self-management supported by new technologies. And therefore, we developed our own VR environment, and we test this first with students who are very severely fatigued, and now also with patients who are very severely fatigued, and also look whether the combination of mental and physical aspects in this virtual reality can help people to improve their physical activity next to their fatigue symptoms. I think that we're a bit... oh yeah, there was one other thing. I also told the public about that most of our self-management is very reflective. And what I mean with this is that you need a lot of cognitions about this. So what is your aim? How can you reach your aim? Something like this. This all happens in your brain, right? And we know that some of our behavior and behavior change is, how can I say this, directed via this more conscious route. But we as humans also react in an unconscious way. So we have habits, reactions are automated, and also related to fatigue. There are a lot of habitual and automated reactions. In a very small project, not about rheumatic diseases, but about kidney diseases and also breast cancer, fatigue and breast cancer, we try out how we can also influence these unconscious processes. And that we do via a smartphone app. And therefore, I also presented this. These are the most innovative things I can think about in terms of pain and fatigue self-management. And they will take time to develop really to be a major, mature self-management support. But I think we should look into these technological opportunities next to these face-to-face and group-based self-management.
So we've just been talking about fatigue and what can be helpful for patients. We started off by thinking about the importance of recognizing that it is a complex symptom. It's experienced differently by different people, and what's contributing to individuals' fatigue can vary significantly. We talked about some of the things that people find helpful, and one of them is using daily activity diaries, and that just helps people to see a pattern of where their how their energy is spent over the course of a day and over a week. And often that's a really helpful starting point to look at where people might start to pace or break things up a little bit, introduce some rests, look at what might be driving some of the crashes that they experience. We talked about a pattern of boom and bust and how that can make life feel very unpredictable, and some of the things that people can do to try and get back a sense of control, so that if they decide that they really do want to push ahead and do something major, it is more of a conscious choice rather than something that they feel happens to them and is beyond their control.
Hi, my name is Shailal. I'm a PhD student in Trinity College Dublin. I'm about to finish my PhD. So I research self-management strategies in people with inflammatory arthritis. I focus on fatigue, And part of my research, we have an intervention called FAME-W, that's fatigue and activity management in work. It's a self-management intervention. We focus on fatigue, pain, mental well-being, and communicating with employers, also legislation, so their rights. People with inflammatory arthritis leave work quite early. This has a burden on the patient itself and the economy of the government as well. So our focus is to keep people at work as long as we can. And we do this by self-management strategies. So we have an online program of FAME-W, and we have a self-guided workbook of FAME-W, where people could attend the online program for 4 weeks, and each week we cover something different. As I said, fatigue, pain, mental health, which covers stress, and legislations and communicating with the employers. So the communicating piece is actually about communicating their needs and disclosing their diagnosis with them to get, well, anything that they need and to get the governmental benefits. So that's the online, and the topics are the exact same for the self-guided workbook, but they don't get together. It's not a group intervention. It's an individual thing. So we send them the self-guided workbook, and it has 4 chapters. Each chapter is divided into 2, the education piece and the goal setting piece, which is quite similar to the online as well. In online, we have the education piece that the occupational therapist is going through, and they set goals with the help of the occupational therapist. And the goals are around strategies that are being taught in the educational piece. And then the following week, then there's goal review, both self-guided and the online. So self-guided do the goal review by themselves, and online they do it with the occupational therapist. Yeah, so that's the intervention. So far we've seen the benefit of it in the qualitative findings. I don't have the quantitative results just yet, but the qualitative participants are giving good feedback there. They're saying that the intervention is very relevant to their current stage, and it's relevant to possibly will be relevant in the future, and it was relevant to what they've gone through as well. So altogether, it's relevant. They like the format of the education and the goal setting. They say that I have a participant who said it's like you learn it and then you apply it, so then you don't forget it and you see the benefit of it right away. So that was that, and they find that it's validating. So the online group likes the group session, and they like the fact that they can talk to other people that have inflammatory arthritis, and they're validating each other, and the occupational therapists as well. And the self-guided health book, then what they do is they read the content and they still find it validating that yes, fatigue is okay, pain is okay, feeling stressed about all this is okay, sleep is not having enough sleep or still feeling tired after having a good night's sleep. That's also okay. It's part of inflammatory arthritis, and that they're learning ways to manage it. So yeah, thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Noria from Spain. I would like to thank Lupus Europe for taking me to EULAR this year, where I have learned so many things. Well, these are my highlights. We can keep our hopes high in regards to lupus treatments. There's so many research going on at the moment. There are so many molecules in different phases of clinical trials that are being studied. But without us patients, it's not going to be possible for those potential treatments to get approved. So we need to get involved in research, and we need to participate in clinical trials. So if you're interested in the matter, just talk to your doctor about it. About CAR T cells, also we can keep our hopes high, but being realistic, because as the professor said, we still need a lot more studies, a lot more years to make sure we know the long-term safety and efficacy of this potential treatment for lupus. And we have to have clear in mind also that if approved one day, it's not going to be a treatment for all patients, but only for a very specific patient profile. Apart from that, in my opinion, the biggest highlight this year has been Lupus GPT, a project by Lupus Europe, which if you haven't tried, you should try now. It's simply mind-blowing, and the takeaways, not only that, is that it doesn't, I wouldn't have never expected that a lupus organization could do such a great thing. And Lupus GPT is not the only one. I've been 2 years working in Lupus Europe and being a volunteer in Lupus Europe, and it still amazes me the kind of stuff that we can do and that patients can do. Patients are far more than what we have always thought of them. We can do amazing things. It's just we need to show it to the world, and that's it. Again, thank you very much for taking me to EULAR, and I hope to be able to be there next year too. Bye.
Hi, I'm Jia. I'm a consultant rheumatologist and assistant professor in rheumatology in Singapore. We have presented in EULAR a multinational observational study where we looked at tapering of immunosuppressive therapy and corticosteroids in stable lupus. We basically identified 2,472 patients who are in remission or low disease activity, and we studied whether tapering of immunosuppressive therapy, including drugs like mycophenolate, azathioprine, cyclosporine, tacrolimus, or even leflunomide, would impact increase or decrease damage accrual later on. Through our study, we found that tapering of the drugs and medications, even in stable disease, does increase the risk of acquiring organ damage, although this was a small effect over time. And this was independently associated with other factors like, for example, tapering of glucocorticoids or flares or age. And these other factors were independent and do not play into this process where tapering of medications such as immunosuppressive therapy may increase the risk of incident organ damage. But certainly further studies will help us observe whether this is also shown in other cohorts. And that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, I'm Chandni Sarkar, and I'm a research assistant based at the University of Liverpool. So internationally, Treat to Target is being developed for CSLE, where new PRES guidelines endorsed pediatric-specific targets, which include childhood lupus low disease activity state. So in this study, we wanted to compare pediatric and adult low disease activity definitions. And basically, pediatric and adult targets both protect against severe flares and new damage. So there were patients who met the adult targets, but not the pediatric targets. So this was inappropriate as the patients were on a relatively high steroid dose for their age and weight. So this study just supports the use of pediatric specific targets in children.
Hi, my name is Maria Hanif, and I'm a medical student from the University of Liverpool. So, childhood lupus is a long-term condition that can cause damage in patients. It's important that we stop patients from getting damage because it's linked with longer-term worse outcomes for our patients. So what we did is we looked at what could be potentially causing this damage, and we found these predictors and thought about how we could modify them. The potential predictors of damage that we found included average disease activity and methylprednisolone. How we thought about changing methylprednisolone is asking clinicians to review the doses that are given to children and see if we could reduce them. And for average disease activity, it's important to keep patients in a low disease activity state so that they aren't at an increased risk of damage. And we can do this by using a targeted treatment approach, which is currently being developed called Treat to Target.
Hi, my name is Blanca Rubio, and I live in Spain, in Madrid. I am involved with Lupus Europe team since 2007, and I am member of the Patients Advisory Network, more known as Lupus Europe PAN, for many years. First, I would like to say thanks to the Lupus Europe board for inviting me to EULAR 2024 in Vienna. It has been an excellent experience and I enjoy the time I have shared with my college. But attending this Congress, we have achieved a great deal more. We have received and always needed extra training. As you know, it's necessary to be a valuable partner in the projects we are working on and for the next one. We have had access to the different sessions to know what is new in lupus and other autoimmune diseases. I remember especially one talk about painkillers and opioids. The doctor insists that always the professional needs to know when and how to start, but even more, when to finish treatment. More than 5 days may induce undesirable effects. Personally, I know many people that are taking these drugs regularly during too much time. The importance of non-pharmaceutical treatments like exercise, a good diet to avoid obesity, to sleep well at night, and to have a healthy social life. You know that fatigue is always with us, but we need to fight against the physical weakness that we can have. I had the opportunity to know what is coming in the near future, the use of different techniques like CAR-T, CRISPR-9, or the DNA recombination, and the new clinical trials with new drugs. Patients need to know about, and our mission is to spread what we have learned. We are lucky living in Europe because not anywhere you can have an easy way to get information and to be trained. The patients' organizations net in Europe is very strong, and with social media and internet access, everyone can find the closest group to their home. As conclusion, I am firmly convinced that if we want that change in lupus management, we need to be part of that change, and together we'll improve communication, adherence, and quality of life. If now we are dreaming with new expectations and to get the remission, hopefully we'll see soon a world without lupus.
It's rolling.
Hello, I'm Mitchell Silva. I'm the chair of EUPATI Belgium. So we're part of the European network of EUPATI organizations. And I just presented a presentation on a new course that EUPATI is developing on HTA for patients. So in this course, the aim is that we can actually really bring information. What is HTA? How does the process look like? But also where can you be involved as a patient organization? This course will be available as of September online in 5 languages. And if you're interested as an organization, you can always come to eupati.eu and ask if you would like to, or to ask to receive this course, and then we can see how we can help you further.
Hello. So if the question is how can patient help the process of health technology assessment, the really basic point is to say that to make decisions with therapeutic innovations, you need to have the perspective of any stakeholder. So, of course, the payer is important, the health insurers, the physician are important, but of course the patient, they know what the disease is on a daily basis, and they can just really give their point of view on what is the most important to them, and is the therapeutic innovation, which is assessed, really something added value with a higher added value compared to what is already existing. So this is where the patient voice is really important.
Everybody, my name is Dr. Sarah Bennett. I am a psychologist based in Bristol in the UK. My PhD looked at the psychosocial impact of joint hypermobility and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So these are where your joints are very bendy, and you can do a lot of party tricks, but it can also lead to a great deal of joint pain and instability. So my presentation at EULAR was looking at the impact of disability and the workplace. So in my own research, people actually shared with us that typically they'd been diagnosed kind of later in life. Sometimes that diagnostic journey could be quite a long one. So it's similar with a lot of other rheumatic conditions in that sometimes when you're diagnosed, you realize that the job you're doing maybe isn't for you. It could be quite a physically demanding job. It can maybe cause flare-ups in your symptoms, or maybe it's like quite emotionally demanding, and with your symptoms it's a bit difficult to manage. So people told us that sometimes they would change their positions, and that's some of the research that the National Rheumatoid Arthritis Society did as well. They noted that sometimes people who had rheumatic and musculoskeletal conditions were often changing their jobs, so about a quarter of people did that once they had a diagnosis. But work was actually very important to people, and people told us how even if they were just doing volunteering, giving themselves something to get up for in the morning was really powerful. And they said that even if they weren't getting paid, they really enjoyed the fact that they could still find something to do and volunteer for and have a reason and a purpose in life and things to get on with. Another thing was having the flexibility in the workplace in order to manage their rheumatic and musculoskeletal condition.
I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for the opportunity to participate in EULAR Congress as a patient representative. Being part of this prestigious event has been an incredibly enriching experience for me. As a patient, being a member of Lupus Europe family, I deeply appreciate the dedication and commitment of the entire EULAR community to advancing rheumatology research and patient care. The insights and knowledge I gained from the Congress sessions have been invaluable, and I'm inspired by the collaborative efforts to improve the lives of those who are living with rheumatological diseases. The most exciting event, of course, was how EULAR community reacted to lupus GPT. For me as lupus patient, Congress was very inspiring, focusing on advancement in research, treatment, and patients' care. The key point is that Lupus Europe has top reputation and patient voices are heard in the rheumatology community. By attending EULAR Congress, lupus patients gain access to cutting-edge information, resources, and a supportive community, all of which contribute to better disease management and improved overall well-being. Thank you for recognizing the importance of including patients' voices in these critical discussions. This inclusive approach not only empowers patients like myself, but also ensures that our perspectives contribute to shaping better health care outcomes. Overall, Lupus Europe participation in EULAR significantly enriches the Congress, ensuring that the patient perspectives is integrated into all aspects of rheumatology research, education, and policy making. This leads to more patient-centered care and advancement that directly benefit those who are living with lupus. Once again, thank you for this remarkable opportunity. I look forward to continue to support and engage with EULAR community in the future.
Research. We are interested in developing blood sample-based tools to help lupus rheumatologists better manage their patient care. One of these tests is a flare prediction test that's informed by different immune pathways and tells us whether or not a patient is likely to experience a disease flare in the next 12 weeks. A complementary test to that is a disease activity test that actually characterizes what's happening day-to-day disease activity in lupus patients to help screen patients to see who needs more clinical care and who's doing well and doesn't need to get rheumatology appointment. The other phase that is currently in progress but will be coming out soon is development of a lupus classification risk. So which individuals are at highest risk of developing lupus and should probably be seen by a rheumatologist.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Kamphuis. I'm a pediatric rheumatologist from the Netherlands, and I just gave a talk on multiomics and if we can use multiomics to guide treatment strategies. What I feel is most important for me doing this research is that in childhood onset lupus, the need is actually, I'm so sorry to say, but it's a bit higher than in adults. Our children have more severe disease, worse outcome, and would benefit from better treatment choices. And choices need to be informed by knowledge about disease severity, about knowledge if they would flare disease. And currently, we have no blood tests that can actually predict whether they have severe disease, whether they will flare. We only know that they're, sick at diagnosis. We treat them, but if the treatment fails, we actually do not know which other treatment we should add. We're just guessing, we're just trying. And I think it is time that we should stop this trial and error strategy, but just have targeted therapies that we know which treatment to choose. But unfortunately, we're not there yet, but with our study that we did, looking at multiple layers in the immune system, it actually shows that there's the option that this could guide treatment strategies, as we saw differences between groups with the same disease activity, but from a biological point of view, different backgrounds. So maybe that could guide us and help us to choose therapies in the future.
Physician scientist at Johns Hopkins University. Today I presented data on urine proteomics in lupus nephritis. What we have found is that in patients who have lupus nephritis who have been treated for 1 year, if at the 1 year mark they still retain biomarkers of intrarenal inflammation in the urine, such as interleukin-16, these patients will end up losing kidney function down the line. What that means is that there's a group of patients in whom the inflammation in the kidney do not respond to immunosuppression, and when it's still found there at 12 months, this inflammation likely leads to continuing the damage in the kidney, eventually resulting in kidney function loss. These findings are important because they can inform the development of urinary biomarker, but also the development of better treatment endpoints, both for clinical practice and for clinical trial design.
Hello everyone, I'm Lena Koskina and I'm a PAM member. I recently attended EULAR and it was a really great experience once more. We got to listen to a lot of interesting talks from doctors, researchers and other patients. One presentation that stood out to me was by Dr. Alessia Luno. She talked about how doctors can better support people who have just been diagnosed with a medical condition. Dr. Aluno emphasized the importance of doctors asking patients and actually not guessing about their experiences and carefully listening to what they have to say, both verbal and the body language. She also talked about the different emotional stages that patients might go through after a diagnosis and how important it is for everyone involved in a patient's care to work together as a team. Two things she said that really stuck with me were diagnosis is a word for a doctor, but the whole world for the patient, and that you cannot cure what you don't understand. I think these are two things that many patients can understand and actually relate to. As we all know, finding a doctor with whom you feel comfortable enough to talk and express your feelings can make a significant difference from the initial diagnosis to treatment adherence. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Maria João. I'm a rheumatologist from Lisbon, and I came here today to speak about some initiatives we've been doing with the general practitioners in Portugal and some resources we've tried to give to them, like some online courses and applications for smartphones, all the resources that made try to fill the gaps in knowledge.
My name is Oliver Hendricks. I'm a professor from Denmark. I'm actually working at the University Hospital of Southern Jutland, Esbjerg, and I'm here as the person presenting what narrative medicine is about in the Meet the Expert session. And very briefly, when we really want to realize patient-centeredness, we have to be aware that the centeredness is not solely about the content. It is actually much more about the relationship. So when we see the patient as the why in the center, and we see our diagnostic tools, our rehabilitation, our treatment as the what in the outer circle, it is the narrative medicine that connects the what with the why. So telling nutshell stories, for instance, about how patients achieve their disease, telling nutshell stories about what is the treatment about, not in a way where we stick to our high professional way of explaining, but preparing a talk that is reaching out for understanding, engaging, and in the end, creating hope for the patient. That is the goal of narrative medicine, and it definitely needs an understanding for how we communicate and what framing is necessary to realize the best form for good communication. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Ricky Helenemu. I'm a physical therapist and a senior researcher from Norway, and I've been working with physical activity and exercise for people with serious rheumatic diseases for more than 25 years. And my main task is physical activity. And I know it's difficult, and sometimes it's difficult to think that you can do anything at all if you have a lot of pain, but just a little bit helps a lot. So if you can get up off the couch or up of the chair and go walking or moving around, or maybe taking a bath, or being a little bit physical activity, that really has a lot of health. It helps your health a lot, and also your disease, because your disease gets worse from being sedentary or sitting or laying a lot. So in periods where you are not feeling good, make sure that you get up every 30 minutes, just so that the body can get stimuli that is a little bit like breaking up the sedentary period. But gradually start physical activities will help, and it helps a lot. Only 15 minutes a day, you can notice a change.
Hi, my name is Andrea Marques. I'm a nurse from Portugal, and I'm here to speak a little bit about the role of the nurses in self-management. So nurses play an important role in the promoting self-management of patients, because we can educate patients, we can provide them with resources that can help them on the management of their diseases. We can refer patients for patient association or to other resources in the community that can help us in the management of their diseases. And also very important, we can help caregivers in the management of the diseases of their beloved ones. So nurses play an important role in this team, and they can be play a role as an advocate of the patients, namely, for example, liaison with the rest of the rheumatological team, and as well liaisons with all the resources that are available to help patients in self-management.
I am Alessia Lunno. I'm a rheumatologist from Italy, and I just gave a presentation about how to support a new diagnosed patient with an RMD. So the key message I would like to give is that, first of all, we need communication. We need efficient and effective communication between patients and physicians, because the newly diagnosed patients needs to understand in full what the diagnosis means, which may be the implications for the quality of life, for the future. So it's very important that there is a continuous interchange of information and that the patient themselves ask questions and find the best way forward, because unfortunately it may be the case that a new diagnosis implies a treatment plan as well. So it's extremely important that physicians and patients communicate effectively, that they achieve a shared decision-making process so that every health-related decision is shared and is the one that ultimately will improve the quality of life.
This year, the EULAR Conference took us to Vienna, known as a city of dreams. With its beautiful architecture, music, art, and new ideas that have shaped history, it was a perfect setting for learning, discussing, and developing new collaborations in lupus research. The event gathered more than 10,000 delegates, including people with lupus from many different countries. With more than 400 speakers, the conference highlighted a great interest in lupus. We counted down an opening that put lupus in the spotlight, and the conference did not disappoint. We received good news about new and different potential approaches to lupus. Our future is changing, but we are building it here and now. We were reminded that one of our key treatments was discovered 75 years ago, and while we have learned much about it, there is still more work to be done. The scientific research presented covered a wide range of topics, reflecting the complexity of lupus. The great amount of new data means that putting all the pieces together will be important for our future, and people with lupus are part of this. It was a joy to witness the significant contributions from patients and patient organizations who play a key role in our holistic approach to care. Vienna knew how to make us live a dream with all our new friends. Now it is the time to work harder and hope for a better future in lupus. Thank you.
Summary of the problem with obesity and lupus is that you have to address the weight. The weight itself is contributing to your lupus, and so you need to start somewhere, anywhere. You need to understand that you have to get adequate sleep. You need to understand that you have to eat the right foods, minimize your exposure to processed foods, and you have to exercise whatever way you can start. If you're still in a bed, you can start by moving your toes and progressively increase your tolerance towards a goal of 150 minutes of exercise a week.
Evan Winthrop. I'm a professor of infectious diseases in Portland, Oregon, at Oregon Health Science University. I was giving a Meet the Expert session, and I talked a lot about vaccination and the importance of vaccines in people who are immunosuppressed, and very much so, in particular, people with lupus. We focus on a number of vaccines, but a lot on shingles, which lupus patients are at very high risk for shingles relative to other autoimmune diseases, and of course, relative to the general population. And this extends to even young lupus patients, so even down to, a young age. So one thing I highlighted here, and I'll highlight for you, is the importance of vaccinating those patients using whichever shingles vaccine you have in your country. Most countries, this is now called, it's Shingrix. It's a non-live vaccine. You can go ahead and give it to people who are immunosuppressed. In other countries, it may still be Zostavax, which is a live vaccine. That's a vaccine you have to be careful with. You can't give it to immunosuppressed patients. Although patients with RA using TNF blockers or low-dose steroids, methotrexate is safe to give. But by and large, the Shingrix vaccine, which is not live, is the one that we've most recently been focusing on in most countries, because that is the approved vaccine. It will provide good protection, although we don't know a lot about how well it works in patients with lupus yet, or RA or other conditions. So I and others are involved in studying this question, and we're hoping to have better answers about how to use it and how to maximize its effects in patients with autoimmune diseases.
Hello, my name is Lynette Borte, and I am one of the youth leaders for Lupus Europe. So I went to EULAR, and my 5 takeaways are: 1 being transition from childhood to adulthood. And the pointers I took away from this session was every transition is individual, multidisciplinary teams and conversations and communication is key, information to support young people transitioning, appointment should be led by the young person, and parents' support is key for young people, and they should be able to have their voice if the young person's happy to do so. And the role of the specialist nurse is crucial. I had a specialist nurse and this really supported me. Peer support between young people is huge. And in conclusion, communication is everything between all involved in the lives of that young person. And finally, transition is not final. And the second point, takeaway, is involvement in fatigue. So I learned from this session with rheumatic diseases, fatigue is different to pre-diagnosis. Obviously, having lupus, I wasn't as tired as I was pre-diagnosis. It can be challenging to look at fatigue and depression, so I found that, healthcare professionals find that challenging. Management and treatment is where we are right now. And daily diaries to support people with rheumatic diseases. The psychologist discussed about daily diaries helping people with fatigue, and I do that every morning, so I did highlight in the session how this helped me. My third takeaway is pregnancy. So I learned from this session that the importance of counselling and family planning in patients with rheumatic diseases is key, especially at childbearing age. And I also learned it is best to counsel from the onset of diagnosis to address any issues at childbearing age. So I also learned a baby has a 38% chance of getting a rheumatic disease. And for men, oxidative stress and inflammation can result in infertility. And antioxidants and folic acid can improve men's sperm who have a rheumatic condition. My fourth takeaway is exploring self-management and the definitions and life. So in this session, I learned there is a certain group of people that cannot achieve remission. Aim is at achieving independence, and obviously in order to support that is having your support network around you. The key tips I learned from this was exercise, diet, weight management, good nutrition really does matter. A Mediterranean diet combined with good exercise is really good to support your rheumatic condition, as well as the circadian rhythm. Going with your biological clock is so important. So good timing with food and having good sleep is also so important. Eating and sleeping at the same time every day is really, really important. And then I learned also that treating the patient and not the disease, because every patient is individual. And my fifth and final takeaway is that I found that EULAR, compared to other conferences and congresses I've been to, i.e. ELM, the European Lupus Meeting, and PRES, the pediatric version of EULAR, I found EULAR really patient friendly, and I felt I learned a lot, and it wasn't so scientific. I actually was able to learn a lot because they use layman's terms, they use patient friendly language, and I was able to feel confident enough to give my view as a patient and a person with lived experience. So those were my 5 takeaways for EULAR, and thank you for listening.
So I hope you enjoyed those videos. We also have a few people who are going to present live today. So I'll begin by inviting Elfriede, who is the Vice President of Lupus Europe and the Treasurer, and also a PAN member, to give her a bit of feedback.
Yeah.
The floor is yours, Elfriede.
Thank you, Jeanette. Well, first of all, it was my first time at EULAR. And as Lynette also said, I found it very patient-friendly. And although it was a huge crowd of people and a huge floor that we had to conquer, I found it really easy to make contact to everyone, even doctors, other patient organizations, researchers. They were all very open to the story of what patients had to tell and eager to learn more. So that was very encouraging, I think. And also one of my takeaways was that when I was in a meeting with young researchers, I really noticed that they wanted to learn from us as patients. How can we involve you better? And they really took away and with them our contributions and our thoughts about how things could be better organized or better could be better for patients in general. And they were really very impressed by how Lupus Europe is able to express what is needed for patients. So that made me, and that was also one of my takeaways, made me very proud to be part of such a strong, independent organization where there is such a knowledge about research, what is needed for patients, and with such strong patient advocates. So I think the other thing that was very, I was very impressed about and made me very hopeful was the sessions on all the expected new treatments. And although I know that there's a lot that has to be done before that will result in really new medicines or new treatments, compared with a few years ago, or it seems like a few years ago, there is a lot more going on and a lot more potential new things that could make the life of patients with lupus better. Also, I noticed, and that was also a great takeaway, that in almost every presentation, the importance of exercise was mentioned. Of course, we know that it's important, but also in all the scientific talks, first in the top 3 in the list of what to do and what to tell patients and what is important was exercise. So that is also one of my takeaways. And I was also very proud of all the colleagues like Zoe and Alain and the others who presented, and there were a lot of people who were interested in what they got to say. So I think overall we did a really good job at EULAR, and patients are taken more and more seriously.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Elfriede. That was great feedback. Yes, I think we really represented the Lupus Europe community really well.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So next up, I would like Samantha to present the feedback. Samantha is one of the other youth group leaders aside Lynette. So we already heard from Lynette. Now we want to hear a bit for you, Samantha.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
All
we hear
right.
you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so my name's Samantha. I'm one of the Lupus youth group leaders, and that was my first ever EULAR. And it was amazing. It was a lot of people. It was great to see everyone and reconnect and make new connections with the professionals and doctors. And it was great to see a big presence from Lupus Europe presenting out there. And hopefully one day I can do that too. But yeah, I think there was so many great sessions during those very intense days. I think one of the sort of key takeaways for me was about narrative medicine by Oliver Hendricks, and he was talking about this when the cat moves in, sort of in the box, and I was thinking as a cat as a rheumatic disease, so in our case lupus, that when it sort of the cat moves in, you don't like it, you try to deny it, you try to somehow get rid of it, but like the time goes on and you start to see it's not that bad, and kind of at the end you start living with that and you get along with it. So it was really nice sort of to put it in the story. I felt myself like what I went through with lupus, it kind of went through that story, and it was quite nice to have that perspective from the doctor that is trying to talk with with the patients, not just through scientific ways, but through like this other narrative. So it was good to kind of reflect as well, and I think that it would be really helpful if doctors kind of put in more in this way, sort of kind of speaking with patients. Another thing, I was attending quite a few sessions about family planning, fertility, and pregnancy, which one of those about the importance of counseling and family planning in patients with RMDs. That the counseling is very important, and it should be done as early as possible from when the patients are at the fertile age, which I wish it was done with me. And yeah, so the counseling should also include not only about like thinking about the family, but also about the contraception and abortion, if that is in case the pregnancy is unwanted, and fertility preservation. I wish that was talked more, to be honest. I think in from my case, it's still not there, and I think we as a patient have to push for these conversations. So hopefully in few years, these could get out more, these conversations with doctors and patients. And yeah, so and it was highlighted that the unplanned pregnancies could be the worst outcomes. So in RMDs, patients with RMDs should be planning it really carefully, and we should put a lot of thinking into it. The other thing was the psychological impact of works with disability. So that was presented by Dr. Sarah Bennett, and it was about disclosing or concealing your RMD, the disease, which it was kind of reflection and kind of it put me in the way of thinking, depending on your workplace. It could, if you disclose, it could probably help you with your disease. If your workplace or school knows your situation, they could potentially help you. They could be more at ease, helping you with going to the hospitals, etc. So that was interesting to hear about how it works from the psychological side, to see on the patients how does impact your working into it. So I think there were so many great sessions. I could talk a lot about them, but I think it was a pleasure to be invited into EULAR, and it was a great experience for me as a patient, and being young and learning so many things that we not get that information firsthand. It's just absolutely amazing. So I'd just like to thank you all again, and yes, thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for being there, Samantha. I think you did a really great job, especially considering it was your first EULAR. So it's quite overwhelming the first time you're there. You did
Yes.
really great.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Thank you so much. And thank you for reporting back, because I think this is exactly the point. We need to bring all the information. We were there. It's our responsibility to bring the information on to all the people who weren't there. So the next one who is going to tell us a bit about their experience at EULAR is actually Francesca, who is a Lupus Europe board member and also a PAN member. So Francesca, would you tell a bit about your experience? Good.
Okay. I hope you can see me. I don't know.
Yes, we see you.
Wow, thank you. So it's as all the other person has said, EULAR is I think a very huge conference, which everything is you can find everything that is related to rheumatic diseases, and it's really 4 days very full of things. And it's always a pleasure to meet the doctors, but more our family, our lupus family, and all the friends that you acquire during the year and during this experience. I tried to this time to have a look to non-specific to lupus presentation. And so the first one that attracted my attention was one on the health, the planet health. And so not only our health, but the health of the place we are living in. And was really an amazing presentation made by a mathematician. I think it was very strange to see a mathematician at EULAR. And what it comes out is that the health care in general accounts for something that is more than 4% of total emission in our world. And for sure, we can do something to enhance the situation because for sure our health is very important, but also what we have in the surrounding is the same, very, very important. And some of this is not very difficult. Some of the proposed enhancements are quite easy to implement. Some other are very expensive, and so maybe it will not be done, but some can be achieved. So we hope that in the near future, maybe next year, we will see also some results and not only some good proposal. In general, I see also from the other presentation that that has been a lot of focus in, I would say, quality of life. So we should always remember that, yes, we are a patient, we have lupus and so on, but we are person. And sometimes when I do go to the doctor, I feel like, okay, you are just talking about the lupus diseases, but nothing else. And it was, from the other side, very amazing at EULAR that there was a lot of presentation, a lot we have already here during this evening, about diet, physical activities. For example, one I find very nice because they organize group to make activities in the nature. And I would say maybe because I'm in a city, so being in a forest is a dream for me. But in any case, I find like hugging the trees or something like that. And the other things was also very important, the diet and the effect, the diet and the physical activities, both. That has not only an effect on us like the weight, but it has direct effect, for example, on the inflammation. And we know that lupus is an inflammatory disease. So why putting more things on it, and that's on our it's our duty, I think, or it's our goal to help ourselves. And we also have already heard, so it's I don't think it's the time to say more about the self-management. So I think we heard about the new diagnosed person, but also I think the old diagnosed person has still something to learn. There is always something new. So I think that's more or less my takeaways. And again, I would like to thanks. And for sure, it's really amazing how the lupus patient voice is loud, sorry, because it's a voice, and heard about all the communities.
Thank you, Francesca, and thank you for being there as well. As she also said, it's good to have young people. We also need the more experienced people to be there. So thank you for taking
Thank you
part.
for not saying old people.
Thank you so much, Francesca.
You're welcome.
So we still have a few people to present. The next one is actually our General Secretary, Zoe, who also has a bit of feedback to give us. Zoe.
Hello, can you see me?
Yes, we see you.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. So it was actually really, really interesting to hear everyone else's takeaways today. I agree with everyone. It was really hard to actually get only 5 takeaways. This was such an exciting Congress, so many interesting sessions and lots of things to learn. So my first key takeaway is probably from a session on the changing evidence in the science of obesity by Dr. Stamatis. And I found that really interesting because first of all, she talked about how there's more than 500,000 papers on obesity and nutrition, and that represents more than 100 papers every single day. But then she talked about how thinking of adipose tissue, which is body fat really, as an active metabolic organ is the way to go, and that the bigger this adipose tissue, the bigger the problems that it can create, because it actually releases pro-inflammatory proteins. So it's not just fat. There's actually a link between this and chronic inflammatory states. It can't cause autoimmune conditions, but actually controlling this adipose tissue is one of the steps that we can actively take to help ourselves a little bit better and to help control inflammation a little bit when we already have a condition like lupus. Another interesting thing from this session was that she mentioned this was only discussed for 1.75 minutes on average in consultations.
Wow.
And this is nothing.
No.
And only in 1/3 of appointments. And that when it was mentioned superficially, and it was mentioned without a clear goal and without any help for patients, whereas actually what patients have said they want is information and support on this topic. So I think that's very, very important. Then in the plenary session, Professor Laurent Arnaud had a really interesting session on lupus and what's on the horizon. And I think a couple of my takeaways are from that session. He took us through a tour of the history of lupus, and he focused on a number of key areas. And one of the points that he made was that there is increasing recognition that damage in lupus can actually occur very, very early on in the disease because of activity itself, but also because of some of the treatments that are used, especially corticosteroids. He talked about the existence of a window of opportunity to treat the disease very, very early and very strongly in order to avoid damage and get things under control very quickly. So this is key. But this also reflects that a lot more needs to be done collaboratively, really, to improve diagnosis delays for people and ensure that more people with lupus have earlier diagnosis, earlier access to treatment. And we know that earlier diagnosis can lower risk of damage, but can also lower cardiovascular risk, flare risk, and get better quality of life. So that was really important. He also mentioned a tool called using artificial intelligence to help doctors. So it was a SLE Risk Probability Index, or SLRPI, which is a funny acronym. And this is basically an AI model that doctors can deploy across health record databases, and they can look at predictions of lupus cases in healthcare databases, picking up sort of cases of lupus that humans may not have otherwise picked. And as a possibility, this is very exciting. And he also mentioned 92 investigational agents at the moment for lupus, 58 biologics and 34 synthetic DMARDs. That is a huge pipeline of investigational agents. So a big hope for the future. Together, some challenges, because that means there's a lot of clinical trials, phases 2 and 3 at the moment, which that means there's a lot of corresponding demand for people to take part in clinical trials. So that's important. I have to sneak something in, which people have talked a little bit about in their videos, but I can't not mention it. So Lupus GPT was also unveiled.
I was also going to mention that, so but go ahead.
So it was unveiled on the first day of EULAR. And this is a very exciting AI tool that Lupus Europe has actually developed. It works basing its information on Lupus 100 and other key reliable documents, really selected by a panel of doctors, expert lupus doctors and patients. It's free for everyone. You don't need a subscription or a login to access it. There's 2 versions of this AI tool, a standard version or an easy read version. Now, the interface of this tool is in English, but actually the tool can answer questions in almost all languages. And that means that actually Lupus GPT can answer dynamic questions that people have on lupus, and it's only based on valid information. And we really believe that it has the potential to shape therapeutic patient education according to patients' actual questions. So if you haven't tried it yet, please, please, please go to lupusgpt.org and give it a shot. And I have to say, agreeing with everybody else, Lupus Europe had an incredibly strong presence at this Congress. There were so many people from Lupus Europe there this year, but we were everywhere. Everyone did such an incredible job. It was fantastic to see everyone's energy, everyone's dedication, everyone's enthusiasm. We submitted 6 abstracts, and we had 6 abstracts accepted. There were 2 abstracts, like you said, Janet, in the scientific program, which was very exciting, but there were many oral presentations across the scientific program, across the PARA program. Elfriede mentioned that members of the board and members of the Patient Advisory Network took part in an Emunet sessions on linking up young physicians and patient research partners and how we can better work together. Everyone attended sessions. Everyone made sure to interview doctors and get a short summary of the sessions, which is why we are able to have this webinar today and reach so many people, so they can actually have access to up-to-date information and research on lupus from EULAR. So that's really my last takeaway. It was incredible to see. And thank you so much to everyone who did such great work.
And I think this is also the time to thank you, Zoe, for all the behind the scenes work, because you made it all possible.
I think everyone worked so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zoe. So, I will take the opportunity here to finish by giving you some of my feedback because I was very busy in meetings, but I also saw some sessions. In particular, I know that a lot of people were very enthusiastic about the CAR T cells to treat RMD session by George Shett. where he presented among other things, the groundbreaking new treatments that are being investigated in lupus on CAR T cell therapy. So it's extracting T cells from the blood of a lupus patient, gene manipulating it, and putting it back in after having reduced the immune system to zero, so sort of rebooting the immune system. And we now have 5 years since the first patient went in, and that person is still free of lupus. It's a very exciting therapy, but it's not going to be available for all, and it's a long time yet. We still need a lot of testing to see where this goes. But it is promising for some of the really, really serious cases of lupus out there. If you want to know more about the CAR T cell therapy, I can give you a recommendation to have a look at our webinar that we did with Professor Ed Vital, and it's on YouTube on our YouTube channel, so you can go and have a look. There was an HPR session, so a health professional session with menopause and the impact of hormonal changes in rheumatology health. That I think was really, really interesting, looking at the menopause and what the change in hormones does to an RMD, and specifically to lupus. I know that hormones plays a really big role, and for many women, menopause in itself is a big issue, but having an RMD on top of it is really, really tough sometimes. So having a focus on that, I found was really interesting. I also want to highlight one of the sessions I heard many, many people talk about outside the Lupus Europe group, which was working with an RMD, make RMDs work in the Power program, where our own Alain Cornet had a presentation on putting a value on volunteer work. So we heard previously in one of the other speakers telling about how important it is to have a work. And if you are not able to have a paid work, just volunteering in itself can give you a lot of self-esteem, can really make you feel like you're contributing. And his presentation, where he spoke about how we in Lupus Europe actually put a financial value on our volunteers and have that figure in our numbers each year in our financial outcome, is actually really valuable. And it shows how much also financial value a volunteer can have. I found that was really, really exciting. We had a lot of talks about steroid sparing, so how we now see some results from cutting down steroids and reducing therapies in general in lupus, and how that impacts a lupus patient in remission. So making sure that the patient is still in remission, even if you are trying to taper the steroids and trying to cut back on some of the therapies, it is possible to do, and that's really reassuring as well. We already heard a lot of people talking about the non-pharmacological interventions like exercise, diet, sleep, fatigue, and self-management. So the mental health and well-being in general was really highlighted at this EULAR as well. So we already told you about Lupus GPT, so I will skip that. But that was also, I think, very, very impressive, and a tool that when people realized what it was, they found amazing. And I really think this is going to be a wonderful tool moving forward. We will keep adding more reliable data to the tool, and hopefully that will improve it even more. But that every patient is able to ask a question in their own native language and get an answer immediately from it's from sources that we know are reliable. I think it's really important. Yeah, so that was the final feedback that I had. And if you follow our social media channels, Lupus Europe, you can see our highlights. So be sure to follow, and we'll give you more highlights from EULAR. And you will also be able to see this and other videos on our YouTube channel. So keep an eye on that as well. For those who were registered to take part in EULAR 2024, the on-demand platform is available until December 31st this year. So I can only encourage you to go have a look. And with that, I hope to see many of you next year in Barcelona in 2025. I think will be very exciting as well. And thank you everyone for taking part in this webinar, and thank you to everyone who contributed to make this webinar possible with your contributions.
Dear Janet,
Yes, Riso.
Riso, can I say about
Yes.
EULAR?
Of course you can, Riso. Go ahead.
I didn't make a video, but I would like to say a few words.
Yeah. Could you put your video on so people can see you?
Yeah, I do, but it say that somebody else is start my video.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here. So yeah, to be part in EULAR 2024 was really excited among all these people, and to see that doctors and professionals are taking very serious patients' opinion. So it was really nice, and it was very nice to be on the booth, and you can see that people were very interested about lupus, about GPT, of course, this new tool that we tried it in EULAR. And it was so nice to have a program and try to be everywhere. You know, really, it was like being alive in these 3 days. It was really excited. So, and I have some of my presentation. I'll try to be quick because I think we are on time. So I had the luck to be at the presentation of Alicia Alumo, Dr. Alicia Alumo. She talked about how to support newly diagnosed patients. And she said that communication between patient and physicians is very important. Patients need to understand what the doctor says. We need to share decision for the better quality of life of a patient. Then I will say about the presentation of Persephone Markidou, diagnosed with an RMD, all I need to know. It's important to understand your diagnosis. Being a person with an RMD, face daily challenges like pain, fatigue, psychological exhaustion. Most of the people with RMD struggle with emotions like if they lost a beloved person, denial, anger, depression, until the acceptance comes. And they have to face the fact that for most of the RMDs, there is no cure, and that the treatment needed might be for the rest of their life. Also, this can mean that we have regular checkups, multiple appointments with different health professionals, possible hospitalization, physiotherapy, or even rehabilitation. And what we need to have, it's a good quality of life, and we need a good team, like a GP, a rheumatologist, a psychologist, a psychotherapist, and family, friends, and colleagues. It's very helpful to have them near us, and to be a member of the society or to be a member in an organization. This makes very good for us as patients. And the last one I will say about Dr. Bruno Fantel. He talked about HTA. And well, HTA is a systematic multi-plane evaluation of the properties of health technology and interactions concerning both their direct and indirect consequences. It aims to determine the value of a health technology and to inform guidance on how these technologies can be used in health systems around the world. The purpose is to provide policymakers with evidence-based information so they can, for multiple health policies that are safe, effective, patient-focused, and cost-effectively, and also to help decisions what should be reversed. To make decisions, you need to have the opinion of all stakeholders. Doctors are important, but also patients. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Riso. Yes, and you're completely right. The HTA is a very important topic as well. So make sure that whenever there is a new treatment, a new therapy available, that it also reaches the patients. So that we have patients involved is really important. Thank you. I'm glad you just spoke up. Thank Thank you so
Yes,
much.
I was ready.
Yeah, and Riso, of course, is a PAN member and also a board member. So it's really great to have you on the team.
Thank you. It's really nice to be on this team that I feel is a family.
It is really a
For me,
family. You're
it's a
right.
fun family.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And with that, now I think, unless anyone else has something they want to share, I think it's time to close this webinar and thank everyone for joining and see you out there.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.